Hello everyone, welcome to yet another video in the Clown Decade. And do you remember a few weeks ago in a video where I said this? Because that's the day when they are planning an Occupy Westminster demonstration. This is probably going to be something akin to the citywide shutdowns that Extinction Rebellion did for about half a year, and which stopped happening because there were absolutely no results coming from it, apart from people being arrested and people got bored. Same thing will happen here. They get smaller every time at least. That's the good thing about this. Anyway, it turns out I was essentially right about Just Stop Oil. On October the 1st, they just had this to say: the occupation of Westminster will continue throughout the rest of the month. It's not just a day trip. Meet tomorrow 11 AM at Euston, Paddington and Waterloo stations. Look for Just Stop Oil banners out front. And this is what the scenes were like: a very slow and boring march down Westminster, past Downing Street, with a lot of people shouting Just Stop Oil. It's very tedious and doesn't quite have the same energy that Extinction Rebellion had by putting a massive boat in the middle of London and having a load of famous singers and actors come along to give support. Turns out I'm right, these movements are getting a lot smaller and a lot more boring, and today I'm going to go through the smallest and most boring one I could find. Well, I say that I could find. These two people have made more headlines than Just Stop Oil have made while they occupy Westminster. Because these two people have probably found the two funniest ways I've ever found of protesting, because they are just pants-on-head, moronic ways to protest. So, and as usual with these protesters, they are very narcissistic, so they like to film themselves explaining why they are doing what they're doing. I also tend not to very much like making fun of people's looks, but I always make an exception for the type of people that become climate cultists because they always look strange. So, take it away, Kai.
Hi, my name's Kai, I'm 20 years old, and in a few hours' time I'm going to go to the Lava Cup tennis tournament and set my arm on fire on the court.
So I'm just going to pause it there to give you a bit of space to laugh. Because yes, you heard that right, this guy thinks he's some kind of Tibetan monk who's going to martyr his own arm in hopes that the world will concede to his demands, which, what exactly his demands are? Well, I'll let him explain.
And, people are going to say stuff like, this is horrible, the people in the stadium are going to be disturbed, and anyone who hears about it is going to be really traumatised, especially if they've had experiences with things like self-harm.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I am going to level with you here. I think a lot of people are just going to find it really funny.
And the situation is that feelings of anger about this, vulnerable people, innocent people experiencing suffering, which is what self-harm is, and, innocent people in the stadium experiencing suffering of seeing this horrible thing. I think it's right to feel angry about that because it's unjust. It's innocent people experiencing suffering.
Yeah, the thing with self-harm is that quite a lot of people do it in secret and actually try and hide it from the rest of their friends and family because they feel quite ashamed of it. I don't know many people that get angry at people self-harming. I only know people that are empathetic, but if you're obviously just trying to self-harm for completely narcissistic reasons and try and have the most attention on you as you do it, yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to find that really funny. This in no way is equatable to people with mental health issues, with depression, anxiety and all that, who think that a good way to relieve it is to perform some sort of self-harm. Yet, what you are doing is completely different. And yes, I am not in any way going to be angry or sympathetic to you, I am only going to laugh.
And I think, humanity should sort of have a responsibility for doing all we can to stop that sort of shit happening. No one deserves to experience suffering, especially not young and vulnerable people.
No, I'm not going to lie, dude. If you set your own arm on fire, you absolutely deserve to feel suffering. Anyway, stop going on about yourself. No one cares. Tell me what you want. I want to know what this is for.
And if we believe that, if we truly believe that young, vulnerable people shouldn't be experiencing suffering, then the way that we act like that's true, the way that we act like that principle is actually valid, is by stopping the climate emergency as fast as possible.
Yeah, no prizes for guessing that this will, of course, have been about the climate change catastrophe that we're apparently living through, because that has been telegraphed ever since the video title. But obviously you can't just go with Extinction Rebellion, because that kind of has a monopoly on the climate crisis. No, when you make different sects of the climate cultists, you have to have your own little part of the climate cultism that you need to make yours, and they can't have oil either, because Just Stop Oil has that. So what do you think it is this time?
Because right now we're on a path where hundreds of millions of people are going to be going through unimaginable suffering, which is social collapse, torture, starvation, drought and war and shit like that. Horrible shit that, people just don't really know what it's like because, we've got so much peace and stuff in the UK.
Why are they always so terrible at keeping these things concise? He mentions about 6 things, and torture was in there with climate catastrophe for some reason. I'm not sure why torture was in there. I can kind of understand war if they think that if they think resources such as food are going to be incredibly scarce because droughts are going to be everywhere. Even though this year, which is supposed to show the year where the climate catastrophe is really going bad, we're actually having more floods than droughts. Yet more people are surviving them than ever. And as far as food security goes, it's still fine. We don't have any famines. So you'd think after 2019, when Ocasio-Cortez said that we had 12 years left on the planet unless something was done about climate change, you think a third of the way to that ultimatum you'd see a bit more than some hurricanes and floods, which are natural disasters, don't get me wrong, and I do have empathy for people suffering through them, but disaster prevention and recovery efforts are better than they've ever been. So the death toll for places like Pakistan and Florida, which recently just had a hurricane, the death toll is incredibly low considering how bad these events are. I just don't see any evidence that this world of war with no resources, with food being so scarce that we have to torture people for it, I don't see it coming anywhere close to a reality.
And, the government's response to that coming down the line is still flying around in private jets, like everything's chill. And so, in other words, according to me, they're not acting like it's serious.
Why are these people's English always so bad? And I know this is coming from me, and my English isn't always the goodest it can be. But I never use the phrase "according to me" unironically. Whenever I bring up a point or some sort of evidence, I will never say, according to me, this is what is happening, or this is what people's motivations are, which he's just saying, well, I'm the arbiter of what world leaders think, and them getting on private jets all the time means they're not taking it seriously. I mean, I agree with you. I also don't think they're taking climate catastrophe seriously, because I don't think it's a reasonable outcome from the climate change we've been seeing over the past 4 decades. But I'm not going to say, according to me, they're not taking it seriously. I will say, in my opinion, they are not taking it seriously. Anyway, do carry on.
Because if they were, then they'd be doing all they can to protect our futures. Protect people from the unimaginable suffering that's coming down the line.
So in your opinion, if you get rid of private jets, we're going to avoid war? Okay.
So, yeah, there's no point talking about solar panels or cars or electric vehicles or anything like that because the government's still flying around in planes.
Oh, so all their efforts to try and reduce climate change and reduce carbon emissions are all for nil because private jets still exist. I say this in every video. These people are never, ever happy with the government's response to anything. The government can ban fracking for 2 decades. The government can ban the sale of petrol and diesel cars in 2035. The government can have what was seen as a quote-unquote reasonable target of net zero by 2050. And yet, you get Labour in, no, that's got to come right down to the next 3 years to be carbon neutral. And, well, because of this, they are probably more than likely going to do everything that these people protest for, even more than the Tories do. And it's never good enough. It will never be good enough because it's all window dressing. None of these people care about the environment, and none of them really understand climate change outside of CO2 has a greenhouse effect. And if you're bracing something as complex as the climate as one simple correlation, then more than likely your ideas are probably going to get more people killed than what you are against. And you'll see a bit later why climate change has absolutely nothing to do with what they're doing here. For now, though, let's let Kai finish off.
And we sort of owe it to ourselves and the people that we care about and future generations to find out why we're so fucked and what we can do about it. And you can do that by going to endukprivatejets.co.uk. There's a Zoom going on at 7:30 this Sunday, which you can find out why we're so fucked and what you can do about it. If you can't make that, there's a YouTube video on the website which explains the same thing.
And don't you worry, we will be going through that YouTube video. It's 1 hour and 10 minutes, but I'm going to cut out all the chaff, which, even though I haven't watched it yet, I'm guessing we'll cut it down to about 10 minutes. Anyway, Kai the madman actually did it. He actually went on the court and set his arm on fire. I can't find any footage of him actually running on and setting it on fire, only a photograph, and any footage of it doesn't keep him in focus because TV can't really show a man setting his arm on fire, since you might end up recording a death. But 3 men just came on, put the fire out and escorted him out of the building, where he was subsequently arrested. So when UK Private Jets tweeted this, Kai has been released from custody with an £180 fine for aggravated trespass. They set their arm on fire at the Laver Cup. they set there. He's not a he, him. Live Zoom meeting this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. or 70-minute video. What to do about climate genocide. Anyway, that's enough of man burns his own arm. Because next up we have the woman in this two-man protest group. I don't know why I called it two-man. One's a woman, the other guy calls himself they, them. But anyway, that's besides the point. I think we should have a listen to Maddie and what she is going to do to protest the fact that planes are flying above us right now.
Hi, my name is Maddie, I'm 21 and today I'm going to be pouring actual liquid human shit onto a Captain Tom memorial.
What an odd thing to say.
Yeah, I can get burning your arm to try and seem like that monk who wanted martyrs in the fight against oppressors in, I think it was Vietnam. You know, I can see burning your arm as trying to emulate burning yourself for a cause. I have absolutely no idea what pouring human feces onto a memorial of someone who wasn't even related to the climate change debate at all, either one way or another, how that would further what you want. I would love to hear this rationale.
People are going to say that he's a hero. People are going to say that this is profoundly, obscenely disrespectful to his life and the NHS that he stood up for, and I agree. I was studying to become a doctor.
Boom, stop right there. This is the crux of why a lot of people go on these climate cultist rampages. It's because they feel a failure at some aspect of their life and they feel like doing this massive heroic thing such as dumping crap over a memorial will make them a much better person. In this case, Maddie unfortunately appeared to have failed to have become a doctor to join in with the NHS that, as she says, Captain Tom did his charity work for during the COVID pandemic. Absolutely nothing that he is famous for has to do with climate change or anything to do with the debate. So it's just an odd memorial to bring into all this.
If we believe that the NHS is important, if we believe in taking care of each other, if we believe that NHS workers are doing essential work.
Get on with it! Yes, get on with it!
Why are we forcing our healthcare system into collapse?
Whoa, that's got nothing to do with climate change. There are many reasons why the NHS is currently, and has been for some decades, not doing very well when compared to a lot of other countries' healthcare statistics. Not a lot of it, if any of it, is to do with climate change.
Why are we forcing our civilization into collapse?
Again, civilizational decline, which, I mean, there's a whole debate as to whether that's happening, but no one would agree we're anywhere near collapse. No one sensible anyway, but, you know, I know that she's saying, oh, in the future it'll be the NHS coming under too much pressure and civilization collapsing, but that's not what she actually said. So I am going to make fun of that.
Why is basically no one taking this genocide of all humanity seriously?
Oh, would you get to the point already? I get it. You think that society is the worst thing you've ever lived in. You think society's so bad that you're going to show that by throwing your crap over a memorial. Yes, I'm sure that's what people do when they think society's collapsing. They start acting like, and I do mean this in quite a literal way, but you've started to act like a poo-flinging monkey.
As the livable climate continues to collapse, that is what's going to happen because of running out of food, money, water, people to work, medicines, and meanwhile, mass death, mass disease, mass dying.
Mass death and mass dying are the same thing. She's got this really bad habit of trying to have a speech flow by saying three things to make each of her points, but the problem is that every time she says three things, usually two out of those three things are the same thing. But yeah, once again, as I said before, this talk has been going on for decades. As I said before, AOC said in 2019 we have 12 years left on the planet, and yet we don't see anywhere near the level of destruction that is being claimed by people like this.
All of this is true, and the government won't even end UK private jets.
As I said before, though, they will ban private vehicles that run on petrol and diesel. They will ban fracking, although, having said that, I did say that before, they have gone back on that. And they won't even build nuclear, though. Again, that's probably changing in the coming months. But again, that's mainly because of climate cultists saying, oh, we'll have Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island again. Which, by the way, we won't. Man, I really hope I don't have to eat those words.
Every time one takes off, it pours a bucket of shit and blood onto everything that Captain Tom stood for.
Right, okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
Climate collapse is the end of everything humans have worked for.
There's also an issue that Captain Tom had absolutely nothing to say about. He didn't say anything about it. So again, please explain how it goes against what he stands for, unless you're being very vague. I'm making a prediction that Captain Tom, or most other people, don't actually buy. And then again, please explain to me why, if it's what he stood for, why you're pouring the crap over his memorial.
All the safety and security that we take for granted, including modern medicine.
Again, she keeps focusing on medicine. And again, I think the reason for it is that she just feels bad that she never managed to become a doctor. And so this is her overcompensating for it. And, you know, she's so ashamed of it that she has to try and ride on the coattails on something that seems to be quite popular in the protesting circles these days, i.e. the climate change, and then try and shoehorn her own agenda into it, which is, I want to be a doctor. I mean, that would be my best guess for why she is doing this, because everything she has said has made less sense than I usually hear from these type of people, and that is saying something.
To find out what to do in the face of this genocide, come to a Zoom meeting this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. or watch a 70-minute video. Both can be found on our website and ukprivatejets.co.uk.
Once again, yes, I will go through that video, but not quite yet. Though I will mention with the Zoom meeting, through their Twitter account and website, I can't, I mean, it was yesterday that it happened. I would have expected kind of a thank you tweet or something like that, but they haven't said anything, which only leads me to believe that no one went to the Zoom meeting. But anyway, before we get into the protest and aftermath of this, she kept bringing up Captain Tom and what he stood for. I'm just going to let you know how stupid it is to bring him up as an example of someone who was against climate change. So, Captain Sir Tom Moore, more popularly known as Captain Tom, was a British Army officer and fundraiser who made international headlines in 2020 when he raised money for charity in the run-up to his 100th birthday during the COVID-19 pandemic. All perfectly fine. He served in India and the Burma campaign during World War II, and later became an instructor in armoured warfare. For those of you that don't know, armoured warfare obviously means tanks and armoured vehicles and the like. Things that dump out quite a lot of carbon dioxide because they run on petrol or diesel. After the war, he worked as a managing director of a concrete company and was an avid motorcycle racer. So, motorcycle racing, again, self-explanatory, lets out quite a lot of CO2. Concrete, being the managing director of a concrete company, when you make concrete, it has a byproduct. One of those byproducts being carbon dioxide. And it releases quite a lot of it. I think in the UK alone, making concrete accounts for 2.8 billion tonnes of CO2. I mean this with no sense of exaggeration. I think Captain Tom's carbon footprint is probably more than double that of your average person in the UK. So trying to turn him into this guy who was all for the climate crisis and for ending it and wanting no private jets or anything like that, you've got the complete wrong guy. He is actively the type of person that you should absolutely hate for putting so much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But as I say, this is all just window dressing. They're just trying to get attention. They're just being poo-flinging monkeys. Speaking of which, here's the money shot. Great work. I am absolutely certain that your parents are proud of you. This has really made up for your failure to become a doctor. So Maddie was making her parents proud last Friday, and then yesterday, End UK Private Jet's Twitter account had an update. Maddie has been arrested on suspicion of causing criminal damage and escorted to custody by about 18 police officers. Find out about climate genocide, blah 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 blah, this Sunday, brackets today, at 7:30. Apparently they were still going ahead with the Zoom meeting, and there has been absolutely no update about that. I would have thought they'd have liked to put it up on YouTube or something, but that's apparently not happened. But yes, Maddie's been arrested, and quite frankly, I hope she gets the maximum fine that you can get for desecrating a memorial, which, as I keep being told by leftists these days, means that she'll probably be in jail longer than if she had raped someone. So they were the massive cries for attention that these two people had. Lucky for them, they are actually getting it because they made headline news, and hell, I'm making a video about it, but it seems to have been this time exclusively bad press on these two people, especially when it comes to Maddie throwing crap over Captain Tom Moore's memorial. And let's be fair, they wanted it to try and get people involved and to understand why they were doing this. So I'm going to be maliciously compliant and go through the video that they put up to explain why they were doing what they're doing. Now, as I keep saying, it's 70 minutes long, and this was a thing that Extinction Rebellion were very good at, which was keeping it very concise and having their message well within a 5-minute video. So I'm going to do my best, but let's take a deep dive into this video that they have given us. Skipping introductions because we know who they are and we know what they're going to talk about.
I was learning about global warming back in primary school, so it begs the question, why are we still having to talk about this?
Well, again, as I mentioned before, climate change is a very complex system, and if you're just putting it right down to global warming, CO2, that's all that matters, solutions you're going to come up with are basically going to cause the issues we're seeing all around Europe, especially in Germany, where they're firing up coal power stations because they didn't go full nuclear and in fact shut them down. And
even me, who knows quite a lot about climate change, I still get kind of lulled to sleep at night by the mainstream narratives that things will turn out to be okay, even though I know that's not the case.
My god, I can see how this is 70 minutes long. She spends half her sentences saying the word This is why I make videos and don't typically do streams, because that would be me. I would say and think about what I'm saying quite a lot before it, whereas when I just do videos like this, you know, in these little sections between each cut, I can think about what I'm going to say, form the sentence together, and then say it. And that means that my videos are only an hour long rather than 5 hours long. And I don't know what she means by the mainstream narrative is that everything's going to be okay. The current mainstream narrative is that temperatures only started being recorded from 1850, which by the way isn't true, that's just the cut-off because that was the Victorian cold period, and that we're going to boil off the face of the earth.
And that's a thing called soft denial, and it's worth mentioning that because it affects people who've been researching and campaigning on climate change their whole lives.
Just because people have put their whole lives into something doesn't mean that we have to pretend it's true, or that it's a good thing. I mean, I like how they're trying to say in a nicer way as well that, these are climate change deniers. Because I'm pretty certain that the reason that they call climate change deniers is to try and make parallels with the Holocaust deniers. And so trying to soften that blow ain't gonna fly.
You know, humans being herd animals, and you know, you look around and no one seems to be acting like this threat is going on.
Oh my god, she's screwing up human psychology. Humans aren't herd animals, they're social creatures. That's a bit of a different thing. Humans don't live together in herds. We're not cows, we're not sheep. If anything, we're a lot closer to pack animals, but even that's not quite what humans are like, because we're a lot closer to chimps, because we're very, very capable of working alone, but also we are very, very capable of working together, but that's not the same as being a herd animal. If you're saying these types of things, I can see why you didn't end up becoming a doctor.
We're going to talk about just a tiny bit about systemic lying that's going on as well.
If it feels like she's jumping around a lot between points, that's because I'm cutting out a lot of chaff here. She's saying a lot of nothing that I just have no reaction to, or I'll end up repeating myself, so I'm just going to cut all that out. But here, I'd love to hear what systemic lying is going on here. Come on, tell me what it is. I bet she says nothing.
And the downplaying of all of this, you know, even if it wasn't hard for us to get our heads around because of this delay in cause and effect, you add to that actually no one's being straightforward about what the facts are, the basic facts.
My god, I feel like I'm editing a Sam Piker clip. But you see why I'm cutting a lot of this out? I feel like I have to show you the type of chaff that I'm cutting out. She has just said the same thing in about 5 minutes. She started off this section by saying, there's a load of systemic lies, and then I just cut down this clip where she's basically saying, there are people in the system lying. Like, great, get to the point. She never gets to it, by the way. She just hands it over. She says the same thing again and just hands the microphone over. What am I watching?
Yeah, so I'm going to go through like a 3-minute rundown of the climate science.
Oh my god, they're using the term I hate. I hate it when they call it climate science. Why do they never say, this is what the climatologists say, this is what the field of climatology has to say about this? They never say that. They always say the climate science. An important thing to note, if any science is X science or science of X, it's not a scientific field, and they will not contain scientific studies. Science specifically does not have the term science in the titles of their subjects. They are called physics, chemistry, biology, geology, and in terms of the climate it should be climatology. But they never use that word, and it's a basic thing that you don't even really have to lie about. But it's like they are allergic to the proper vocabulary of science and the scientific method, but here we are.
And all references that we talk about for climate stuff is going to be at the end of the video, linked somewhere.
So this is the last bit of the video that they made here. At no other point in the video do they have any references. Absolutely nowhere on their website do they have any references, and absolutely nowhere in this video description or video page do they have any references. And I will actually leave all the references that I have cited in this video in the description, so you can look for yourself, so you know that I'm not lying. But the assumption we can make here is that we have just been lied to. Which is actually very handy for me, because it means that I can just disregard everything they say here, because they've not cited anything.
You know, we're talking about humans, you know, doing, you know, weird shit and warming up our planet.
Oh my god, I can't believe people aren't taking you seriously if that's your summary of what's going on. Humans do weird shit, and it makes the planet warm. Honestly, what type of education are people in my country getting if they think that is in any way good enough to put on the internet and persuade people over to your position after you protest? There's a reason on the Wellington Project, even on my Wellington Project Twitter account, that I make sure I spell everything correctly and I'm very concise with my speech and get a point across, because I'm trying to act professionally. I don't really care as much on this account because it's a much less serious account. But when it comes to my articles and streams on the Wellington Project, I'd be embarrassed if I said anything like that to try and persuade people over to my side, because I mean, it's self-evident. It's just not convincing to anyone. It's not specific in any way, and it just shows that they don't really care about what they're saying when it comes to the actual climatology. All they care about is having the spotlight on them for 15 minutes.
So, you know, you got burning fuel in aeroplanes, burning fuel in cars, burning fuel in power stations. Those are like three classic ones.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to skip this bit. We all know the idea behind carbon dioxide being released from fossil fuels causing global warming. We all get the idea. You don't actually need to tell us that.
The government is telling us that we are warming the planet, but you know, it's not too bad, because we're going to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius as far as the global average. And unfortunately, 3 of the scientists who came up with that global target have now come out and said that it's all bollocks.
Yeah, more of a Sans style editing there. But I do quite like that. They're not trying to go with the 96% of climate scientists agree that global warming's a thing statistic, because that statistic has always been a misnomer. But now instead they're saying, less than 1% of all climatologists in the world now think that things are going to get worse than we first predicted. Which you have to see the irony of, because the whole conversation about this is, this science is settled. That is what they're trying to say, and now they're just saying, 3 of the scientists that made that target out of hundreds of the scientists involved think it's a low target. So they've just completely undermined themselves when she said at the beginning, in primary school this science was settled. So, no, it turns out it's not.
They don't know any other scientist who thought that it was possible, even at the time of setting the target.
I've listened to that sentence about 10 times and I still don't understand what he's saying. And unfortunately, there's no source for me to actually check what they actually said, so what am I supposed to do? I'm just going to leave that nonsense there as it is, because it's quite funny.
But basically, we're being told that, it's chill, we're going to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then the scientists who actually made that target in Paris 2015, big conference, they all, it's all bollocks.
Oh my god, that context makes it even more embarrassing. Because the Paris Agreement was signed in 2016 based on special IPCC reports that keeping the temperature increase below 2% would be good enough to avoid positive feedback loops from climate change from causing even further and worse climate change. In 2018, the IPCC made another special report basically saying that yes, that would be good. Saying that 3 of the scientists involved in that report, it is like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison, but I can't think off the top of my head of a good one. But if you're complaining about a lot of scientists agreeing with a consensus about climate change, and then you say, 3 scientists disagree with that though and think it's going to get worse, that is actually worse than the statistics on the actual climate change deniers side. You talk about 96% of scientists agree climate change is a thing, or 97%, whatever. Yeah, you could say that 99% of scientists in this case don't agree with these 3 scientists. But again, you've put absolutely no effort to cite your sources, so I have nothing to go off here.
And they didn't know any other scientist who went there who thought that keeping 1.5 was feasible.
Yeah, well, hang on, now you're making 2 completely different claims. Now it's that there's a scientist there who didn't know of any other scientist working on the Paris Agreement or the IPCC report or whatever, who thought that keeping to 1.5 degrees was feasible for governments. Now, you're not being very clear with your words here. I'm not sure what you're saying. Is it that no other scientist thought that keeping it to 1.5 degrees and below would be good enough to stop positive feedback loops within the climate from making climate change worse? Or was it unfeasible for governments to actually get to the 1.5 degree target without having results like we are seeing in Sri Lanka? Again, you've got absolutely nothing cited, so I can't find out for my audience, who are probably very interested to know what you meant.
Yeah, government says that we're on track for 1.5. If you look at the actual situation, we're headed for about 3 to 4.
Oh, this again. Yes, assuming absolutely no change to the current industrial outputs of the Western world, and only assuming that there will be increased industrialization in the developing world, yes, we are assuming somewhere between 3 and 4 degrees by 2100. However, in Western worlds, we are already seeing massive reductions in CO2 emissions. And in fact, the most likely scenario is indeed a 2 degree increase, maximum by 2100. If you want it to get to 1.5, well, you're going to have to look to the eastern countries that signed the Paris Accord but appear to not be doing anything about it. But no, we've got to worry about a few 100 private jets going around the UK, not the numerous amounts of coal power stations that China is currently building to power the entire country.
Heating up a planet by 3 degrees is actually quite a lot. It sort of sets off a chain reaction kind of thing. So just for example, there's some ice in... I can't remember where it is.
Oh my god, man, does it matter where it is? You have cited nothing. It doesn't actually matter what you say because you've got nothing backed up. And I like how they both said that, oh yeah, we do understand the climate science quite deeply. They can't even get basic words in the field right. He forgot the word positive feedback loops. All they kept saying was chain reaction. Like, it's not wrong in concept. Yeah, they exist. But the massive issue I have with the IPCC and other climatologists is that they'll only look at positive feedback loops and completely ignore the negative feedback loops, which we know occur because throughout the history of the entire Earth, throughout its 4.567 billion years in existence, it has had constant climate change, having almost the whole Earth covered in ice, and throughout most of its history, there has been no ice on the planet. Does massive climate change also coincide with mass extinction? Yes, usually. Is it something to be worried about? Yes, of course. Do you care about any of that? No, that is why you are just doing these things to try and get on camera. You just literally want to poo fling.
Where's the permafrost?
It's kind of all over, but a lot in North Russia.
See what I mean? Oh, where's the permafrost? Oh, it's all over. No, it's not all over. It's actually just at the very north and very south of the planet, where it's coldest. And I mean, for God's sake, it's called the Siberian permafrost. It's called the Siberian permafrost. Where do you think that would be? At least they get North Russia right, but my God, call it by its actual name.
Yeah, okay. So there's some ice in North Russia that when it melts, it releases carbon dioxide.
Right, I'm just skipping the rest of the science section that he has to say. He's getting everything wrong. The Siberian permafrost doesn't contain carbon dioxide. That's not the issue with it. The issue with the Siberian permafrost is that if it melts, it releases methane. The problem with methane is that it is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. But the good thing about methane is that it takes about a decade for it to break down in the atmosphere, so it's not as much of a long-term issue as carbon dioxide is. But the problem is, if enough of that methane is let out all at one point, yes, you will see an extremely hot planet that year. Probably. In fact, there's so much methane in the permafrost you can actually just burn it straight away. In fact, it burns so well that it burned a researcher's eyebrows off. But I mean, I'm just skipping the science bit. They just keep getting it wrong. They don't know any of the terminology. Basic terminology, I should add. They are apparently relying on 3 scientists out of literally hundreds, if not thousands, who are involved with the IPCC reports. And the only reason they're latching onto them is because it is to do with their agenda and it gives them reason to attention seek.
So when we get the temperatures to a certain point where that shit starts melting, it's going to release carbon dioxide as well.
No, I gave him a chance. He didn't even correct himself. He's got notes with him. He has notes with him. He got the notes wrong about this very basic thing that I think I've learned about every time climate change has come up in geology, even in university. This is brought up. So yeah, these people know nothing about the climate science. They know everything about their own dogma, and they can't even get that right.
Then you've got a planet like Venus, you know, where the atmosphere is just like a shit ton of carbon dioxide, and you know nothing lives there because it's, you know, unsurvivable for life.
Sorry, but some things I do just have to react to. There's quite a large amount of issues with trying to live on Venus, and the atmosphere being thick with carbon dioxide is actually probably lower on the list. It's probably the constant acid rain, the volcanoes that are planet-wide and constantly erupting. But yeah, man, I'm sure it's just the fact that there's a lot of carbon dioxide that set those volcanoes off. Not, you know, there's no way it could be the other way around.
It might just kind of stop at 3 degrees and just billions of people die. And why would we do that when the greater risk is not act strongly enough and not be precautionary enough, you know?
And look, people don't even try and act Christian at the risk of going to hell for eternity. You know, they won't even go to church an hour a week just to avoid that. So when you have a ridiculous worst case scenario that actually not a lot of people agree with, even climatologists don't think it's going to be world ending. IPCC never says it's going to be world ending. Then you're saying, oh, why don't we do the most basic precautionary stuff? Well, what is that? Well, it's shut down a load of the power grids that we already have. It's completely changed infrastructure. It's going to cost so much money to make all those infrastructural changes that the current cost of living crisis we're in now will seem like a paradise. And basically you're just going to effectively make a load of people today die instead, because they won't be able to afford the heating they need. You know, every new house now needs to be built with a heat pump in. They cost 20,000 more than just your standard gas boiler. I think I've overinflated that price, but you get the point. Things are becoming a lot more expensive and a lot of people can't afford that. Now you might say back, oh, but we're already in a cost of living crisis and bills are already going up. And I'm saying yes, but you're asking to make it about 10 times worse. So they spend the next half an hour basically reiterating that the world is going to burn. Like, there's really nothing more I have to add to it. They don't cite any of their sources. I don't know who they're talking about, and things that they have talked about are either bad predictions or just flat out getting the simple facts wrong. So I've decided to skip ahead, and this is what they have to say at the next bit.
You know, this video is called The Uncensored Truth. The next bit of this video is uncensored truth of real climate change impacts. Sort of like, you know, real footage of the fucking death and destruction and horror and agony that climate change has caused.
So they probably could have just had this little introduction and then segued into showing us the clip, but no, he had to go on another 10 minutes talking about the quote-unquote real climate deaths that have occurred already. And they put up a little trigger warning, which is all well and good, and it says the next part of this video includes real death, murder, suffering caused by climate collapse, or law and order collapse. I'm sorry it has to come to this. And some of them you can understand, though some of the images aren't actually due to climate change either. One of them is to do with flooding in Pakistan. Well, that's not due to climate change. They've had the same level of rainfall that they've had every other year. It's just they've had mass deforestation recently, which meant that it doesn't soak up the water, so it just floods. And I'm not going to show you any of this because some of the images I feel are illegal for me to have. Because there was also a underground tube station somewhere in the third world that got flooded and there was mass drownings in there. Again, they don't cite anything. I don't know where that was, and I can't check out how much it was to do with climate change from official sources, but I've come to expect that from this video. But the wildest part to me is that when they say the collapse of law and order, their example of that is just a 2-minute video of someone getting beheaded. Like, full on, they were right. They did not censor anything. I just skipped ahead to, as like a kind of, oh, what are they going to show me? Is it just a load of flooding? No, I literally saw a man's head coming off. And for obvious reasons, I'm not showing that on YouTube. And I'm very, very tempted. In fact, I'm probably not going to link the video. Mainly, I'll be honest, it's because YouTube will probably ban my video if that link is in the description. However, the video that I'm going through now isn't hard to find because it's basically in all their tweets, and, well, the tweets are all linked. But yeah, exactly what that has to do with climate change, well, it's kind of it's not really a climate change issue, it's an issue of not having law and order, and obviously the issue is that they see is that if you have climate collapse, you will see a collapse in law and order, which I don't buy. But I just find it absolutely wild that they put a picture of some random guy being beheaded in the middle of this video. It just doesn't seem that relevant compared to the rest of it. Like, the massive amount of people drowning probably would have been enough, but no, they had to add some guy's head getting macheted off. I don't think I'm going to bother trying to get this video monetized. Anyway, let's see what they had to say after that.
So at this point, it makes sense to think, what is the point of doing anything? Why don't you just party for 5 years and then go into oblivion? Why aren't people blowing stuff up?
You know how I always say that climate activists are basically terrorists? Yeah, climate activists are basically terrorists. They'll get a slap on the wrist for the couple of things they did here, but they'll probably go even madder than this. This woman is basically going full Ted Kaczynski. She's just not found the right cabin yet.
And the reason why you don't bomb all the oil rigs,
Oh, may have spoken a bit too soon there.
the reason why you do things now and not any later, is because there is actual possibility of technologies and geoengineering that might intervene.
Great, you've just made my argument. That the technology we have now that we need, we are actually slowly moving away from, but we actually need to use that technology to build the future technology that will release less CO2 into the atmosphere. But in the same sentence you also said, oh, you need to do all this now. Well, we are doing it now, and we're actually doing it as fast as we can now. Because pretty much every government on the planet is trying to move us away from it, at least in the West. But obviously there's a lot of homes and a lot of industry that need power. You can't just move it all over to the renewables that you all want with the click of your fingers. It takes a while. Just be patient. We're not going to destroy the planet. And no one's head is going to get chopped off over the climate crisis. I mean, I still can't believe you put that clip in. That was the wildest thing I've seen. I mean, honestly, just a bit of a digression. All my years of doing YouTube, I don't think I've seen anything as wild as that. That was a curveball. I actually had to stop recording for about 10 minutes just to let people know what I'd just seen. I couldn't wait for this video to get out. People needed to know that this seemingly innocent and moronic video actually had a beheading in it.
So when we say we need to cut all emissions now and go into reverse, it's not just that. It's doing all of that and putting all of humanity's knowledge into researching other things that might help us do that faster and better.
Yeah, but again, even if they did do that, it still wouldn't be enough for you. Because we live in reality, and as all the things I mentioned before, it takes time to move from one technology to another. And it takes even longer to perfect that technology. But don't worry, we will probably see lots of nuclear power plants in our near future, and I bet you'll absolutely hate that. Anyway, once again, I'm cutting out about 10 minutes of ums, ahs, and her making the same damn point over and over again.
bit.ly/enduk private jets alternatives for just a list of some of the other things that you can get involved with, because we need to do as many things as possible, and we need to support each other in order to do that shit.
Yeah, I could do that, or you could make this video an extra 20 minutes and keep repeating yourself until you finally get to the alternate options. So let's see what those options are.
Right now, there are multiple organisations and movements around the world all trying to do the same thing, which is make everyone take this shit seriously.
See, this is one thing I don't get from Stop Private Jets UK, whatever they call themselves. Why have you made your own movement then? As you say, there are literally hundreds of others that you could have joined. Why did you make your own? I think I know why they made their own. I think they're slightly too extreme even for the rest of them. I reckon she put forward the idea of throwing crap over a memorial, and they went, are you mental? And now they've done it, and I've looked into it, it turns out, yes, they're actually more mental than your average climate cultist. I didn't think I'd ever be covering this topic and see a man's head being macheted off. I just have to keep bringing it up. It was wild. It was the last thing I thought I'd see today. But there we go. This is what I get for researching mentalists.
So that's what we need to do at this time in the UK, is just force a tiny bit of change, like ending UK private jets, or another small demand like that.
Okay, so that's why you've splintered off. You think you need to come from another flank, if that makes sense. So you have this massive organisation of Just Stop Oil who focuses on stopping oil exports, imports, whatever, and then you're there saying, right, we also need to get the government to ban the use of private jets. Right, okay, I understand that a bit better. And this is really good because the more they decentralise and the more they splinter into these ridiculous groups, the more they'll just drown at each other out and sound like white noise to the government. So pretty happy with that. Still not described what can actually be done to help out these causes, which was the entire point of this section. And again, I have clipped down about 5 minutes here. They just have nothing to say. I've just had to cut out another 5 minutes of them talking nothing. I mean, they had a bit about why they need to be non-violent and what we need to do and all that. But it's just this whole nothingness of, oh, if one person stands up, everyone else will, and things like that. It's just kind of annoying because they're saying it like they're the first people to have this idea, when the whole of Extinction Rebellion was based on this idea. Because, once again, the infamous man himself, Roger Hallam, explained to everyone that doing it non-violently is the best course of action. And it's just like, yeah, everyone should know that by now. No one looks at climate activists and thinks, yes, they're going to bomb something. So don't worry, you don't need to tell people on your side that they don't need to be violent. No one is being violent. You'll just show... I brought it up again. You'll just show the headings instead.
So what options do you have at this point in this video?
Right, there's about 13 minutes of this part of the video left. I'm going to see how much I need to cut out to get to their points. And surprise, surprise, I've already just had to cut out over a minute of him explaining things that you shouldn't do, such as protesting or petitioning, because he doesn't think it gets you anywhere. Like, okay, great, you've just started this whole section of what you should do, and instantly you just say, oh, well, there are millions of options, here are some things you shouldn't do. Why introduce this part of the video as if you're going to tell us what to do, and then not tell us what to do? This is why you script things. I mean, I know I don't script, at least in the conventional way of getting a Word document up to type up a script. But what I do is make sure that there's actually a through line or some sort of narrative that I'm trying to create in my video that keeps it all flowing and keeps it all going. And I cut down all the ums and ahs and make sure what I say is concise and to the point. This video is the opposite, and it's actually making me angry. Anyway, finally it gets back to talking about the options again.
And the link to see all of those options and interact with them and get involved with them is at the end of this video.
I mean, at least finally he's actually told us what's at the end of the video. Which is, yes, he did actually put a link there to a link tree about what you can do. I don't know why he put it to a link tree, given it just connects you to a PDF. There's one link on it. In fact, there's two, but they both go to the same place because one might not work. And then it's literally just 3 pages of, oh, either join us in our Zoom calls or go do what Just Stop Oil are doing. And in fact, I think they go through it now, but that is essentially all it says. This was a colossal waste of time, but at least it's been very funny.
But yeah, so option 1 of stuff that you can do that's actually good. There's another group in the UK called Just Stop Oil, and we're not affiliated with them, but we've seen their shit and they're cool. And the situation is, like with any tactic, if enough people do their stuff, you know, what they're doing is blocking roads and oil infrastructure non-violently.
That's not true. They are doing it violently. They are damaging the structure of roads to try and threaten the lives of people driving over it. They've been quite explicit with that, and then all they did was blame the police. So yeah, don't tell me they're doing things non-violently. I've done a video covering it. They went full terrorism mode, even if it is at the lower echelons of it.
If enough people do that stuff and do it for long periods of time, you know, day after day, week after week, then they'll have enough people to make change, and change will happen.
So there you go. There's option 1. Go to a better organisation. Wouldn't make that the first option if I was trying to make a movement, not gonna lie. But you two clearly are the most incapable people I've ever heard of. But I have heard of you.
And this group is going to do some stuff in London on October the 1st. Occupying London basically day after day after day.
I'm sorry, but this embarrassing editing does have to be laughed at. Why are you putting option 1 about 2 minutes after you started off the section of option 1? What? I don't understand what was going on in the editing room. Why? Oh, I guess it's because they have the October 1st thing there. You can make more than one edit. You're not stuck with one text option. You can actually change it around. You can have option 1, join an alternative group, which again, that as option 1 is just hilarious to me. And then give more information about the October the 1st thing at this point. And I find it really funny because I was trying to skip through this to find the points where it said like option 1, 2 and 3. And eventually I just gave up and listened to the whole thing. But I'm so confused as to why option 1 was here, because it would have made so much sense to have it like 2 minutes earlier. Oh, but anyway, if I keep this up, I'm sure I'll be done for bullying or something.
You know, basically a shit ton of people travelling from all around the UK and not leaving London, not stopping disrupting London.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I brought it up at the beginning. It was a ton of nothing. Anyway, I'm going to skip this bit because, as they do, they just repeat themselves. So let's see what option 2 was. And let's see if they actually get the edit right.
That it's really important to have perspective on what, you know, doing stuff actually looks like, because climate activism for a lot of people means, you know, protesting against an oil company that's just put an oil field in your community. and, you know, everyone's dying because of that, and then protesting about it, and then, you know, getting machine gunned down by the military who's protecting the oil companies, you know, sort of Shell in Nigeria sort of things.
Oh, I love it. I really do love it. So people's livelihoods were at risk in Nigeria because Shell, the oil company, obviously, were drilling for oil, but a lot of oil spillages and pollutants got out into the Niger Delta, which obviously a lot of locals relied on for farming and for food. And because the oil was causing a lot of problems, obviously they protested saying we can't have our way of life. And Shell was lobbying for military support from the Nigerian government, who in '93 had changed due to a coup, so it was quite militaristic as it was. So they lobbied for military support, told them communities that were causing them issues, and yes, there was rape, murder, and just a lot of general oppression abound. And if you think you're anything like that with these new climate activists, like, if you two think you're anything like that, you are deadly wrong. You are basically trying to steal valor here. These people weren't protesting because of the climate crisis. They were protesting for very local issues, which was that oil spillages and the pollution from the oil platforms was causing massive issues in the Delta. It had nothing to do with CO2 release. So the fact you're even trying to say that you can compare yourselves to them, or that it's got anything to do with what you're after, is just ridiculous. The Nigerians would have had no issue if Shell had just done what they should have done, and kept the spillages minimum, and if there were any spillages, paid compensation to the farmers and to the affected people. But that never happened, so that's why there were protests, and obviously the militaristic government decided that killing them was the best option, which it obviously wasn't. So yeah, don't try and bring that horrific incident on board as if it was anything to do with what you're trying to protest for. Anyway, after cutting out another 2 or so minutes, they finally get to option 2.
Option 2 is stuff with end UK private jets. So yeah, we're trying to do some additional cool stuff, and it's a different style to Just Up Oil. Yeah, basically if you are intrigued or resonate with what we're doing in any way, then basically we've got a lot more planned.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
The sky's the limit on how much you can do with our stuff, because quite a big part of it is about pushing ourselves and trying new things as well.
Oh, for Christ's sake, woman, just get to the point. Option 2 is doing stuff with us. Like what? Oh, we're trying to push ourselves, you know? We're doing these really vague things. Like, I get it. Are we going to burn your arms some more? Are you going to throw even more tubs of crap over another memorial? What are your plans? Because I'm just comparing it to when I made videos on the Wellington Project, and when I say, oh, we're going to do things such as writing articles, streams, try and outreach to other people to get interviews, things like that, it's very clear then what you can expect, but I don't know what to expect from you, and I don't know why you expect anyone to watch this 70-minute video when over half of it is ums and ahs, and then there's another 5 minutes of some guy's head getting chopped off.
We're based in London at the moment, and we've got 2 sites, a little community space and then some free accommodation as well.
They did it again. They actually did it again. What is going on? I just want to see what the options are, so I have something to reply to. But even then, when I get to the options, there's nothing to say. Honestly, I'm just going to have to skip. They're saying nothing. What are they actually saying? What's your second option? Oh, there's some free accommodation that we offer. Where? You're just saying it's in London. You've got 2 communities, apparently. Right, you're not being specific. I don't know what you mean. Please elaborate. Oh, she didn't elaborate at all. She basically just said, oh, if your second option is to send us an email. That was basically it. And then she just repeats herself again and again and again and again. This video could have been 5 minutes. I'm just saying.
If you can't get to London, then we're doing online Zoom sort of explanations of what we've got planned and how taking part works.
Oh my god, guys. They did it. They finally put the text where it makes the most sense. Thank God they worked it out on the 3rd time through. Well, thank God for that. But yeah, my massive recommendation to them, please go back through and actually edit down what you have said. You've just repeated yourself loads. I mean, if you listen to this, I think you'd be bored within 2 minutes. Don't know why I said that. You're very narcissistic. You probably thought it was perfect because you love hearing your own voice. My bad.
So, you know, that's just like explaining what we're doing, explaining what we have planned, explaining how you can take part, basically, in the end UK private jet stuff.
Right, there you go. That's where they could have ended this bit, but there's another minute and a half after it of this section. I'm obviously going to go through it to see if there's anything more wild that I can put in, but odds are, yeah, this whole section could have been about a minute. But no, they love hearing their own voice. It had to be 1/4 of an hour. Hang on, no, spoke too soon yet again. There's a 4th option.
If you resonate with the actions that we're doing, and you want to do them, you know, they're pretty simple. We've designed them to be simple, and we've made online tutorials that explain how you can do them.
Hey, it's in the right place again. Well done. But yes, option 1 and 4 should absolutely have been switched around. You should have said option 4 first. If you want to get involved, we've got tutorials. Just follow them and protest. But no, it was the last thing that people should do, apparently.
And you can access that along with everything else at the end of the video.
Oh, again, they go on about the link tree. It's the most annoying thing to get to because you have to type out the entire URL. And I closed it before because I thought it was useless, but now they've said that, I want to actually double check if they do actually have protest tutorials because I didn't see them. Now I'm going to retype link to .ee. It's very annoying. I don't know why you'd have these links easier to find because I can't even find them on your Twitter page. Apparently they do have it, and yeah, this is another thing I'm not going to link to because it has an explanation of basically how to set yourself on fire, and I just feel wrong telling you how to self-harm. And the other one is, of course, the Captain Tom incident, and step 1 of that is make a bucket of shit. Though I think my favourite part is it's number 6. If you want to mitigate likelihood of a criminal damage charge, you can clean up afterwards. If you're going to mitigate this, make sure you do it off camera and don't indicate that you're going to clean it up afterwards. Make sure basically nobody will know that you've cleared it up. Don't want to undermine the moral disruption. This is just embarrassing. I mean, all the main instruction at the start is, oh, just watch the YouTube videos of us and get a feel for what you need to do. It's pretty self-explanatory. But then we're going to tell you how to burn your arm anyway. I mean, even the arm burning bit's just mad to me. They have a whole step that basically says, don't forget fire safety when you're about to burn your arm. It's just mad. I'm not linking this, but it is just mad. However, I do have the fire safety bit up on screen if you want to read it, because I have no words. I am actually lost for words. This is the... I say this without exaggeration. These are the 2 most mental people I have ever come across when it comes to climate cultism. The irony is just out of this world. I mean, honestly, I would be surprised if we don't cover this in Regional Variations on Tailed Features channel on Wednesday. The extra lore that I have to tell them about here is just insane. Right, anyway, I think that's enough of that. I went through the last bit of the video. They just repeat themselves again, surprise, surprise. And honestly, I think I have drained my brain of all its processing power for this week. Even the little amount that I went through of the quote-unquote climate science was too much for me. And the fact I saw a beheading as well. I mean, I know I keep going on about it, but look, you came onto this video. I don't think you'd expect me to go on about a beheading either. Like, think about how I feel. I had to see it. I'm definitely deleting and scrubbing my SSD of all evidence that I had downloaded their video. Even though obviously me uploading it with an entirely edited video isn't probably going to cover that too well, but hey, here we are. Anyway, as I say, that was everything I had for you for today. Technically it wasn't, I could have gone through a lot more of that video, but I'm not going to put you through any more pain. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.